So this is a link that I got sent on my Discord by the always amazing I Am Canadian. Yeah, fuck socks too, right? Socks. Who do they think they are? I Am Canadian sent me this. It's a article called or a video called "Container Shortage: Why the Prices of Goods Are Rising in 2021," and I think it'll be an interesting watch. So let's give it the eyeballs. And here we go.
Let's begin with something you've never thought
right.
about.
Yeah, it is.
All world trade takes place in the ocean. To be precise, 90% of consumer goods are moved by sea. Furniture, clothes, sneakers, bananas, rice, electronics, animals, and practically everything is transported in this thing, a 20-foot metal container which can take in 22 tons of cargo. All world trade depends on how soon a crew of 20 will bring a ship with 19, 20 or even 24,000 containers from one country to another. Just look at how sea routes have entangled the entire globe and become the circulatory system of the world economy.
Also, if I can just interject and quickly say, that's a shit ton of environmental damage too. Every time people are like, guy, if you want to fix the world, you should stop driving everywhere. I don't drive, first and foremost. I walk. But second off, this is a much bigger problem than all of the drivers in the world put together. So I'm just putting that out there. Play.
For 1 year alone, cargo traffic is estimated at 811 million 20-foot containers. That is, tens of millions of containers dart from country to country 811 million times. It's estimated there are up to 180 million steel containers in the world, which suddenly became severely scarce. Where have these ill-fated things gone? How will this affect prices in stores? What has China to do with it? Again. And why will this problem be present for quite a long time?
Almost got excited for a minute there. Live music, what? No, it's just an intro.
Balance. This is what our story revolves around. The stable functioning of any system depends on the strength of the connections between the elements and the resource allocation. If there is a skew somewhere, the system starts to shake. And this skew has arisen due to the pandemic. More precisely, not specifically because of it, but due to the lockdown. Well, not because of the lockdown, but because China coped with the virus faster than anyone else. What? To continue to delve into this madness, we need to remember one thing. When at the beginning of 2020 the virus began to spread, China quickly closed down all its regions, built hospitals, quarantined the loudmouths, and disinfected the streets. As a result, by the spring of last year, China was feeling pretty good. People came out of the houses, raised their heads high, took a deep breath and were like, crisis? What crisis?
I'll tell you something about that Wu-Tang flu.
China had dealt with the virus at home, other countries just began to enter the hard lockdown. As you remember, countries in world trade act as buyers and sellers. What the hell do containers have to do with it? Just wait for it, we're getting to the point. On the one hand, we had China, which was ready to sell. And on the other hand, there was America and Europe that were transitioning to remote operation. People got stuck in their homes and their consumption patterns began to change dramatically. Travel and restaurant expenses understandably took a nosedive, while spending on electronics, home furnishings, exercise equipment, and of course, sanitizers, masks, and gloves went up.
Also, socks that you could buy online.
The balance of consumption had changed. Where are most of these products produced? In China. While I was writing this episode, for the sake of interest, I looked at my phone, speakers, microphone, monitor, router. Everything was made there, and that's where it all started. Happy China, by the spring of 2020, gladly began fulfilling export needs. Millions of containers stuffed with vegetables, sauces, furniture, and electronics sailed from Asian ports to America and Europe to their end consumers. and there was nothing sensational about it, but there is always a but. Containers were leaving China, but they weren't coming back. Even now, many countries operate under restrictions, and then in the middle of 2020, the world economy ground to a halt. And since people stopped going to work, production didn't create goods, countries didn't export them, and seaports' operation was seriously slowed down due to a lack of labor. This means that containers weren't sent back to Asia. Under normal circumstances, the whole thing works like this. A container with 5,000 dinosaurs is sent from Asia to America, where it's offloaded and then taken to the warehouse. Then the American seller rolls up a new container with 20 tons of soybeans and sends it to Asia. So the same containers are moved back and forth, providing 90% of all world trade. It was like that as long as there was balance. But now, the containers are not returned. They're simply stored and bide their time in European and American ports. Out of 10 containers, only 4 return to Asia, which is less than half. This means that goods from Asia, the world's main exporter, simply couldn't be loaded. In one of our videos, we said that China was returning to normal life while other countries weren't. Roughly speaking, China was ready to sell abroad, but buyers were still struggling with the consequences of the coronavirus. But nobody expected that selling a ton of goods to other countries would lead to the first signs of collapse in August of 2020. There were just not enough containers. By August, the price for the transportation of one container exceeded $2,000. To understand how ridiculous it is, look at this pre-crisis graph. An okay price was around $1,500, give or take $300. But here we have $2,000. And as you understand, it was only the start of the party which continued through the fall, winter, and carried over to 2021. And now the cost of transportation is storming the $5,500 figure. It has increased by almost 4 times compared to pre-pandemic times.
A buttload.
But we looked at the average world index. To assess the full scale of this insanity, we need to check specific routes. All right, ready? The transportation cost of one container from Shanghai to Rotterdam will be $8,371, but taking it back will cost $7,000 less. It is a 6 times difference. Here is another example of an Asian route. Shanghai to Los Angeles is $5,211, but Los Angeles to Shanghai is $589, a difference of almost 9 times.
Jeez.
These are record figures in the entire history of sea freight. Moreover, for the last year, there has been a new record every month. Now imagine yourself being a carrier. You're transporting 20,000 containers from Shanghai to Los Angeles. Your journey takes 12 days. You need 4 days to unload. For each container, you get $5,211. Now you have to wait another 4 days to make the return trip for 9 times less money. And this is provided that the container ship is packed quickly and all the cargo is at port. And as we have already said, since America and Europe are still recovering from the crisis and getting vaccinated, they don't have that much cargo to export. Moreover, all this time there hasn't been enough labor force in the port. Because of the same restrictions, there are now fewer workers at the docks: loaders, drivers, crane operators, terminal workers, chassis adjusters. All these factors lead to the fact that the carrier starts to think, why the hell should I wait for you to wake up and load my ship? The sooner I return to Asia, the faster I'll earn money on the next trip to America.
And big money.
Several of our major customers report that virtually every ship leaving China and other export areas is fully loaded, but because of the tight sailing schedules and the need to turn ships quickly, they're unable to wait for all the empty containers, and they leave with 5% to 8% fewer containers on the back haul leg than there were on the front haul leg. So, not only is the balance of container turnover disrupted due to the lack of exports from the USA and Europe, but also because of high rates, carriers leave to Asia early to make a quick buck. Sometimes carriers won't book shipping space even when you're paying them double. Sometimes it's just an endless wait until you run out of patience and ask them, "How much do you want?" By the way, to make this video, we resorted to crowdsourcing from our Russian audience. So that you understand in what turmoil this sector was, I'll just leave these screenshots from one of the experts. They show the level of interdependence of the global economy. Amid a shipping crisis, commercial air transportation also decided to make good money. You can pause and read these great pieces. Moving on, we have a situation where only 4 containers out of 10 are getting back. And the Port of Los Angeles, for a moment the largest US port and 17th in the world in container shipping, reports the following figures. For every 3.5 imported containers, only 1 container is used for export. At the same time, the imbalance is not only in the fact that Europe and the US export poorly, while Asia trades as usual. No, the situation is worsened because Asia supplies insane amounts of goods that exceed pre-pandemic figures.
We're breaking records with this extraordinary level of business activity. The Port of Los Angeles processed more than 957,000 container units in March. But we've never seen volume like this in the first half of a calendar year. It's a stunning 113% increase compared to March of 2020. It was also the busiest March in the port's 114-year history.
Is it just me, or did he seem like this is all just a really good thing that we're nailing capitalism. Look at all the shit we're doing, and like the reality is we're in some trouble. Oh shit. That's not what I meant to do.
And in the midst of chaos, with a shortage of containers, skyrocketing transportation prices, a severe trade imbalance between Asia, Europe and America, a new character is added to the cast. The Ever Given ship, with 20,000 containers on board. On March the 23rd, while en route from Malaysia to the Netherlands, it was passing through the Suez Canal and ran aground due to a sandstorm, blocking one of the most important trade routes in the world. The Suez Canal, like many bottlenecks in sea transportation, is very, very important. For context, about 12% of all world trade and 30% of all containers pass through it. In a day, more than 50 ships and about $3 to $9 billion worth of goods pass through this 120 miles long waterway.
So we estimated the cost of this 1 week disruption to between 30 and 50 billion dollars. That is so important that even a week delay has a cost.
And as you can imagine, the Suez Canal is part of the Asia-Europe route you're familiar with by now. And all this mess turned out to be the icing on the cake of rising prices for transportation to Europe and America. The main question is, what to do with all that? Well, the obvious answer would be to dramatically revive the economies of America and Europe, remove restrictions, bring people back to their jobs, overcome the pandemic, and restore the balance of world trade. Unfortunately, there's no magic wand.
You can't just push
At one
a button.
point, China came up with an interesting idea: to pay carriers extra to bring back empty containers. This somewhat lessened the shortage of containers in Asia. If you want some numbers, here they are. Now the main port of America exports about as much as it did at the start of lockdown, while importing 2 times more, and there is a 4 times difference between import and export. But as you can see, there are 3 empty imported containers per 1 exported. And this measure of China to pay extra for the return also affected the state of things. Carriers are more incentivized to pick up empty containers than to wait for the loading of goods. Then there is another option, to make some more containers. After all, these are just welded sheets of steel. Now guess which country these containers are made in. 85% of the market is occupied by China. And manufacturers are well aware of the shortage, so they raised prices for new containers by more than half. And besides, they're in no hurry to increase production. The United States even launched an investigation to find out whether Chinese manufacturers are holding back production on purpose to maintain high prices and make huge profits. Because if they are, then container manufacturers, leasing companies and carriers get to cherry pick. The prices for all these operations skyrocketed, and the costs will be paid by the end customer, as usual. Of course, you've been waiting for a little more detailed information on which products this will affect. First of all, simple household items and food. Basically, all the goods whose prices are strongly influenced by the transportation cost. So it will hardly affect complex electronics because a tiny chip itself costs hundreds of dollars. Alright, ready? In January 2021, Vietnam exported half as much coffee. The same situation with the rice supply. India, which is the world's #2 sugar supplier, exported 70,000 metric tons in January 2021, which is down to less than 1/5 of its volume a year earlier. Think about it, less than 5 times. All this mess even encroached on the sacred, toilet paper. The largest manufacturers of raw materials for toilet paper speculated that a global shortage was coming. And the most amazing thing is that no one knows when the global economy will regain balance. At first, back in 2020, they said that everything would be settled in just a few weeks. Then it moved to 2021. Now they say that all this crap will continue in 2022 and even in 2023. In other words, such a nuisance is here to stay, as if there weren't enough problems for us already. Today, the world is incredibly interdependent. The success of an operation depends on the carefully planned cooperation of thousands of people scattered around the planet, many of whom haven't even seen each other. Toffler called this the arrival of the second wave. There's a much more popular term among the common folk: globalization. There's this feeling that the world is never going to stop. Together with technological progress, viruses mutate wildly, which affects the economy. Everyone adapts as best they can. Scientists are making vaccines. There's even speculation about different kinds of drugs. Ports are trying to speed up their work.
And today, 17 container ships are being processed at the Port of Los Angeles. That's a 70% jump compared to pre-pandemic averages. Terminal land utilization remains above 90%, operating more than 10 to 15% above traditional capacity throughout this surge.
And the topic of interdependence of state economies is so deep that we have hardly touched even the tip of the iceberg in this video. Well, let's stay on top of it, my friends. If you enjoyed this video and would like to learn about the chip shortage, then you know where to post your requests. In the meantime, leave a like, hit that subscribe button and click the bell to receive notifications.
Alright, So that's Bony Right. I've never actually seen the Bony Right before, but that was a fuck of a good video. In a holy fuck, the world is in trouble kind of way. I'll add to this that what we've been told, so I work in IT, and what we've been told sort of, throughout the last little while is the effect that all of this has had on the global supply chain is going to be very bad for IT systems. The production of chips, he was talking about the chip crisis or manufacturing chip issue, whatever, will be a thing. But also all of the components that make computers, and more importantly, like routers, switches, firewalls, all of that shit that organizations need in order to be cool. There's a massive backlog of those. This has some real world fucking challenges, especially with things like the US government's reaction to the colonial oil hack, was it? Which is going to require a lot of companies replace a lot of equipment that the supply chain won't be there for. So it's a weird time. I gonna jump a little bit, but at the same time stay, but jump, but stay, but Kitty Jerkface, you need to sleep. Have a good rest of your evening. Yeah, you take care, my friend. We'll see you soon, hopefully. Ordered 20 laptops from Dell today, October delivery. That's not terrible. So maybe we're not in such bad straits as I'm thinking. October delivery isn't great for 20 laptops by any stretch, but the word on the street was it would be a lot worse than that. Like we're talking 6-month waits. So that's hopeful. All these people who refuse to lock down, who refuse to listen to the medical experts and do the necessary things. Yeah, October delivery allegedly, Abby says. All the people who ignored all the science and who instead went on little marchies saying we need to reopen the economy. So here's the thing. First off, from a macroeconomic global perspective, yeah, you're absolutely right. We can't sustain long-term damage to the economy. And this video outlines an example of how this can really be problematic, and particularly in the fact that China's not our friend. Contrary to those who think that maybe I'm funded by the CCCCCCP, I don't know, there's a bunch of letters in there. I'm not a big supporter of China as a country. I think they're terrible. Just ask a Uyghur. But they have us over a barrel, figuratively speaking. 3CP1. That sounds almost like C3PO. So this is an example of how bad things can happen in light of this, the economy being closed. But here's the thing. We had to close the economy. We made the right choice in not close the economy, but in scaling back and doing the lockdowns and doing what was necessary to protect the people who needed protection. As a libertarian socialist, that's my number one concern, is make sure that people are going to be all right. We got vaccines. Vaccines good. Vaccines real good. Yay, vaccines. Right on. What did they do? They didn't get their vaccines. So now we're ready to try reopening the economy. And what's happening all around the fucking world is that reopening the economy is causing people to get sick and die because they didn't bother getting vaccinated. So like, what the fuck? I did my job to reopen the economy. Why didn't you, while you were screaming, reopen the economy? I have a little thing that I'm gonna play. It's a game. Fuck that. Fuck those people. Right? You selfish fucks. You wanna go on your little tirades about pandemic and the government and all my freedoms. Fine. But all your rhetoric about triggering the economy to kickstart again, I'm ready to do that. You're fucking it up. Eat a dick. First off, I want to say thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Thank you to my patrons that support me on Patreon. I am a little streamer, and these people are all really awesome for supporting me. Thank you to I Am Canadian. Special huge thanks go to my one prophet, Shithead Dave Anderson. And of course, my final tier of supporters is the Gods. This tier is the most expensive and likely to never have any members, but Patreon really told me I should have one, so it's true, I guess. There are no gods. I try to put up stuff at least once a week, and I live stream every Saturday at noon Mountain Time on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, like an old man. Again, thanks for watching, and have a kick-ass day.